Tales in isolation. Who knows what number it is? We've all given up on numbers. All we know is we're in Tier 4, Lockdown 3, and it's the year 2021, I think. Anyway, when I was 15, 16, I joined the Everyman Youth Theatre in Liverpool. And one of the first exercises we had to do there was a trust game, where we stood on a table and we put our arms together and fell backwards off the table, to be hopefully caught by our fellow theatre members. Now, this is Liverpool in the 80s, and I was at a comprehensive school at the time where the idea of falling off the table, being caught by your fellow peers, I mean, you're more likely to be pushed off a table or pushed off a building in many cases, certainly not held and saved. So it took quite a lot of courage to actually do that for, but I did it, and it was quite something. And I don't think people who won't work in theatre won't understand the value of trust games, but trust games are really important to theatre people, because essentially once you go on stage, you're trusting so many people around you. You're trusting all the technicians to do their best and get it right and cue everything on time and make sure things are flying in when they're supposed to be and moving when they're supposed to be. But you're also trusting your fellow actors to be there for you and for you to be there for them, because things go wrong. People forget lines. And you are essentially quite naked on stage, because you are in front of the public in a way that most people wouldn't allow themselves to be. So the support of your fellow actors, technicians and theatre makers is all about that moment of dropping off a table and knowing they're going to be there for you, and they are there for you, and it's a great feeling. Years later, when I was in my 20s, I went to London to do a postgrad in theatre design, and I had virtually no money, because even though we got grants, they were quite minuscule. But I went to the Sadler's Wells to see Lindsay Kemp doing A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Lindsay Kemp, and I was so lost, really. I mean, just totally lost in the performance. It was one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever seen in my life. And I went 3 nights running to see that, which, considering I had no money, was not a wise thing to do, but I just couldn't stop. And then years later, I went to see Facade by Lindsay Kemp, that amazing Edith Sitwell, Walton, eccentric English masterpiece of words, which he had turned again to this wonderful theatrical moment. And it was only years later I found out that one of the actors on stage, one of the lead actors, was actually blind. And as he walked across stage, the only reason he knew where he was because his fellow actors would very gently touch him, or just stroke him as he walked past, or just shadow past him. And it was that told him where he was on stage. An immense bravery to walk out onto a place like the Sadler's Wells with a huge orchestra pit, not knowing exactly where you were until somebody had touched you or stroked you or walked past you in a way that just created that moment. And I suddenly realised, of course, that we're living in a time when there is no touch, when we can't shake hands with our fellow citizens, we can't hug our fellow citizens, we can't walk up to one another in the street and just do the normal thing. So it's no wonder that so many people have a lack of sense of where and who and what they are. We lose that sense of who we are because we've lost one of those senses, which is their ability to touch and to know where you are, and in some respects, who you are. And that moment of collectiveness is also something that, as an actor, performer, creator, I miss. Being part of a live event is very, very different to Zoom and all the other film and TV things that are around. Things happen in a live event which nobody, even the performers, can ever work out in advance. Audiences do things you don't expect them to do. and it's a shared thing. So as actors, we kind of know where we are in a performance by the touch of an audience. And that touch is sometimes the touch of a breath held collectively, a laugh given collectively, a groan, a sigh, whatever it is. But it tells you where you are on that stage. It tells you where you are in that performance emotionally, where you are. And I have some amazing performances in my life. I mean, apart from Lindsay Kemp. But I've also seen things which could never, ever have been anything other than a live moment. And yes, there are films of it, but it isn't the same. I saw Nick Cave at Glastonbury, and there was a moment where he'd cleared all the press away from the press pit. He'd walked out, stood on the rail before the audience, and then he walked across the audience. They just put their hands in the air and held his feet as he walked out across the audience, like God on the sea. It was just amazing. And from the audience, a girl was lifted up, and she began to walk across, till in the end, they were face to face with Nick Cave singing a song. It was just, wow. It was an amazing moment. And yeah, like I said, I've seen it on YouTube clips and things, but that isn't it. That wasn't it. If you weren't there, you weren't there. And that's what I miss most of all, is live theatre. Yes, I can create little video moments. Yes, I've written video plays and Zoom plays, but I miss that heartbeat. I miss not knowing what the audience is going to do, how they're going to react. I miss the shared breath. I miss that sense of who and what we all are. I miss the touch that tells you where you are on stage, who you are, and what you are. And it will come back. We will do live theatre again, and it won't be the same for quite a while. But in many respects, maybe it'll be more special. Maybe we got too used to all that. The crush of an audience, pushing through an audience to get a band on stage, so I had to do so many times before now. That intimacy, which we all took for granted. And yes, events will be smaller in the future. But I kind of like that. I kind of like seeing the lines on people's faces. I like seeing the beads of sweat on them. I like smelling an audience. I like knowing they're there. I like sharing the moment. We will be back. We will be back.